What's going on, guys? I figured I'd come on, give a life update, and kind of more of an end look in my life, just kind of so when I start explaining the flight school side of everything, it makes sense. And then I'm gonna go through some of the comments that I didn't have time to actually reply to, and go over it. So the last video I made, I was living in Bakersfield. It's probably halfway through private pilot, and my wife got pregnant. We were living in a 2-bedroom condo on the east side of Bakersfield. If anybody knows anything about Bakersfield, you know that's not the place to have a child. So her parents are in San Diego. You can actually hear my kid right now. He's having a tantrum. But her parents are in San Diego. That's where she's from. And so there was a flight school for CAU in San Diego. So I transferred down here, and we were closer to them, and we bought our house, and my wife was probably 2 months away from due date for our baby, and she had issues. So we went to UCSD, and she had to have an emergency C-section. So our son was born 2 months premature. So that kind of ex-nayed everything going on in my life. And I wasn't exactly making a lot of money in flight school, and I already had issues with CAU. And so I kind of just focused on making money for my family. So our son Jackson was staying in the NICU for an unforeseeable amount of time. So I went and got a job selling fire suppressor systems for Johnson Controls, which I kind of got fucked on that. So then I ended up going back to doing what I did in the Navy as a contractor for Amentum, which I cannot praise that company enough. But so my son spent a month and 10 days in the NICU, and then we brought him home, and we're like, yep, we can finally have a normal life. Everything's going great. And he was home for 4 days, and then we had to life flight him to, I believe it's Rady's Children's Hospital. So his first stint in the NICU was just getting him developed enough to where he didn't need feeding tube, he didn't need help breathing, stuff like that. He was putting on weight, figuring out how to eat on his own. And then when we took him to Rady's, he had blood poisoning or infection in his blood with E. coli, which is food poisoning. So I'm not really sure how our son got food poisoning in his blood when all he did was eat formula. So we went through that hurdle, got him home, and I was like, okay, well, there's this other flight school called Coast, I believe, and I've got my hours. I just need to redo my solos and then get into my check rides again. So I was thinking I was going to do that, and then my wife ended up having some pretty serious health issues. So we took her to UCSD. She needed surgery, but the surgeon was like, well, we'll do it in 2 months. So maybe 4 or 5 weeks later, she goes into septic shock at the house. So she went back to a different hospital in the ambulance where they did the surgery. Got her home, lasted 5-6 days, and she had to go to the ER. Ended up having another surgery. So we kind of went through the cycle where she did a surgery, they discharged her. I took her back a couple days later. She sat in the ER for 4 days, got another surgery, got sent home, took her back. They're like, oh, it's just an infection. She can go home. And that didn't work for me at that point with the back and forth. So I took her to, I believe it's Scripps. It's right next to UCSD. And that's where she's at now. It was definitely more than an infection. So she has a lot of stuff going on in her abdomen. But I haven't really flown in, I'd say, 6 months. And so that kind of goes into my frustrations with check rides and TPEs, because I think it's somewhat designed for you to fail the oral. So the first time I failed my oral, that was for sure on me. I wasn't prepared. I got stressed out. I asked for discontinuance, and that turned into a letter of disapproval, which that's on me. I can't really justify that any more than I wasn't prepared. So then, like I said, I was in San Diego. So my flight school wanted to rush me and do another one, and I was looking at, my last oral and what I did wrong, and I didn't feel comfortable with getting just pushed in the door a couple hours early. I wanted time to not be so stressed. So the response to that was making me drive to Bakersfield, pay out of pocket for a hotel, because obviously I'm not going to stay in the dorms when I have, at the time, a pregnant wife. And so I took the oral, and I got a letter of disapproval for fuel consumption. So what I was taught was the POH was with a brand new aircraft with the test pilot. And I'm not flying a brand new aircraft, and I'm not a test pilot. So I'm not going to fly that good. And I wasn't going exactly through the fuel chart of, at this altitude, I'm burning 8.5, and at this altitude. So I found the highest number. So the most fuel I could ever go through if I was a test pilot in a brand new plane, and rounded that up. And I did that for my entire flight. And so I got a letter of disapproval for that. And I wouldn't say I necessarily agree with that at all, because in the words of the DPE, he's testing to see if I'm a safe pilot, not if I know everything. And I felt, in my opinion, if I could say I'm using a little bit more fuel than I am, maybe 2 gallons at the end of, cross country, that keeps me safer than if I'm basing my numbers off of something that I know is not real world. And I think that the way that the oral and the flight is set up is broken. I think that, if a DPE doesn't want to go fly, which is what my DP really seemed like it was, that they can nitpick and find something in oral, and they make the money as if they did the whole thing. And then they can make another $400 for when I come back and say, all right, here's your nitpicky thing. I did it your way. Now let's go fly. And so I couldn't schedule another check ride with that guy in the time frame I was there. So, and to give more insult to injury, somebody decided to throw a spark plug through the back of our brand new Jeep window and try and steal a bunch of crap out of our Jeep at the hotel. So I had to get a whole new window. So I'm $900 into a window. I'm 800 and something bucks into the check ride that I got a letter of disapproval for, because I was being safe, in my opinion. And then drove all the way back, and yeah, so that's my update. I'm not a fan of CAU. That, not because they're a bad flight school, but I think that it's easier to pass a check ride if you know what the DPE's pet peeves are, and if you could pick your DPE. And I think we should be able to. That's our money. But so that's kind of the update of why I'm not flying right now. Actually, you guys can come with me as I calm down, baby. But that's kind of why I'm not flying right now. Kind of what's going on in my life. I'm not looking for a pity party or anything like that. I'm just kind of explaining to you guys why I started this channel. I was expecting to do a bunch of videos, but Buzz. Oh no. Did your binky fall out? Oh no. Yeah, there you go, buddy. But why I started this channel, and I only have one video, because I wasn't going to make another video until I passed my check ride and started going on an instrument, and then I could talk about instrument stuff, because right now all I have to talk about is private pilot stuff, which, I mean, you could really only talk about that for so long. And my main thing about this was helping veterans, because I found no resources when I was looking. And I just wanted something that another veteran can watch and be like, all right, that makes sense. So, kind of going into some of these comments. So, Rich said, finally someone that addressed the VA issue and actually was able to clarify it. Bottom line, pretty much he's saying you got to pay out of pocket for the private pilot, which isn't true. If you find, like I was saying, like a college that does the aviation program, the VA will pay for most of it. So you still have to get a couple student loans, and stuff like that. But if you've got a disability rating, I think I kind of talked about this. If you have a disability rating, and you get into your instrument, you can do the VRNE and pretty much say, hey, I've got a bad back. I can't dig a trench for the rest of my life. This is the career I want to go to. Then they'll pay 100% of the rest of the way, whatever the VA doesn't cover, or the GI Bill rather, and they'll pay off your student loans to wherever, whatever got you to that point. So you just have to front a little bit, but I'd say it's maybe 10%. It's not anything crazy. Alec said somebody talk more about voc rehab and how it works. I kind of touched on that a little bit. I think once everything settles down in my life, and I pass my check ride, which I'm hoping is in a couple months. I'm going to have to do a lot of flying, but once I pass that and then I actually go through the voc rehab or the VRNE, then I'll make a video so I can do more than just what I've read and what I think. I can say what my experience was, because I don't want to spew shit at you guys. Danilo Gutierrez, I probably pronounced that wrong. He says he's on the fence about flight school. Don't be. Just, you can do one flight lesson. It might cost you $300, but go do it. Go do your first flight and see what you think about it. See if it's something for you or if it's not. I highly recommend going on one of those flights. Christopher said that he's glad I started this channel and that he's curious about BH in San Francisco. Or not San Francisco, I'm sorry, San Diego. We talked about San Francisco. So when I came down here to CAU, I'm only going to talk about CAU because that's all I really know. The flight portion of the school was at Montgomery Field, but all the classes were online, which is another thing that I fucked up. I was failing those classes because I can't focus on that kind of crap. But that counts as you being in San Diego. So if you were to look up taking online classes, I think it gives you half of the BH of the national average, which is probably like a fucking quarter. But if you're at a flight school with online classes, you have to show up to the flight school to fly the planes, right? So the VA is like, okay, you're there. So I was getting, I think, $2,900. It was E5 plus dependent BAH in San Diego. And I left the school right before they did that temporary hike. So that's cool. But that's how the BAH works. It's wherever you're physically going to, that's where the BAH rating is going to be. In Bakersfield, I think I was getting like $1,500, which was insane. Wesley says he's in a 141 school and hasn't done his private pilot yet, and does the 9/11 cover private pilot in a 141. It should. It absolutely should. If it's a school, so there's the part 61, and then either 61 or 91 in 141. And so 141 is pretty much telling the FAA that this is a more stringent school. So they have an actual ground school. It's not like you know, mom and pop flight school where they're like, hey, take this Sporties online. You know, they have an actual ground school. And most 141s are a university, some type of college, community college, whatever. And if it's one of those, then 100% will take the GI Bill. But if it's, you know, John's flight school that has nothing to do with the degree path, it's not going to. But 141 is good. Well, I take that back. It won't pay for your private pilot. Once you go past your private pilot, then you can use your GI Bill towards it. But if it's not, you know, some type of a school like university, community college, then you're going to have to kind of out of pocket that. And that's one of the questions when I go through the voc rehab at some point in my life with what's going on, that I'll figure it out and I'll ask those questions even though it doesn't pertain to my case, just so that I can kind of explain it to you guys. Elliot's talking about how he's confused. He said, hey buddy, I'm thinking about taking this route, but I'm super confused by all these fees and funding requirements. Talking about what the website says for the VA. And so pretty much the process is I talk to the school and they'll point you in the direction if you're going to use your post 9/11 or Montgomery. I switched to Montgomery because it was a higher payout per year than the post 9/11. And so those numbers, yes and no, are accurate on the VA website, but when I was going through it, I'd see like 13,000 every 10 weeks go into the account. So, you know, that there's 52 weeks in a year. So I don't think it would have stopped. So, because I was there for about a year and it didn't. It kept going. I still needed to get a federal Stanford grant or whatever, it's a loan, just to cover, you know, that last little bit, but it wasn't bad. So I'll go through a couple more of these and then I'll get off. DL said, what if you want to use your GI Bill and not go to a college with a flight program and you just want to learn how to fly as a job? He has a bachelor's before the military. Congrats. Hopefully you an officer. I had a different flight school tell me different things. Most flight educators are 50, 80,000, and the VA website says only covers 12 to 14. I get the 141, but 35 to 65 is a rough gap to close. So it depends. What I would do if I was you is I would talk to the flight school. Like, it's nice to get the information from the VA, but the flight school, if they've had veterans before, they're gonna know the process way better than I do, way better than the VA does, in all honesty, because the VA really doesn't know what's going on any day of the week. But I know for sure if it's not a university, you're out of pocket for private pilot, which it can get up there, you know. That's a lot of flight time, and it says 40 hours, but most pilots on average get it around 60 to 70 flight hours. So you just got to add all that into it. So, but any other questions you guys have, more direct about, you know, stuff that I can actually answer, just put it in the comments. I'll try and get on here. Like I said in the beginning of this video, I've got a lot going on in my life right now, so kind of trying to hold the fort down at the house, and I've got my son and trying to get my wife healthy. So I appreciate you guys watching, and if you have any questions, like I said, just leave in the comments. Thanks, guys.